Hello Foggies, and welcome to episode 7 of the Foggy Author. If we haven't met before, my name is Brett Jackson and I write books through the haze of brain fog. In this week's My Writing Life, I finally finished the editing for the Time Clones Book 2. But as I got to the end of the editing, I realised it wasn't the end of the story. And now I need to write a couple more chapters, then edit and finish. So my next job is to bullet outline the ending, write a couple of chapters, then edit and finish. And I'm setting myself a deadline of 2 weeks to do this. I also had some rest days after last week's Go 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 week with our grandchildren and the very long walk around the UK Games Expo. So I just chilled and pottered around the house, occasionally writing notes for this newsletter into my phone and coming up with ideas for the ending of the Time Clones Book 2. As part of my 2 days of rest, I played Minecraft. Before I knew it, it was 3 AM and all I'd done was explore an absolutely massive cave that used up an entire chest full of nearly 1,000 torches to light it up. And it's still not even completely fully explored. I also went into another of Adaras Spence's author lives and finished editing chapter 7 of the audiobook version of Time Clones Book 1, which you can watch by clicking the link in the description of this video. In next week's My Writing Life, I shall be introducing Writing Lives with Hoggy, my trusty little pig-shaped timer who's way better at keeping track of time than I am. Feel free to join us this Wednesday in 2 days' time, where I shall be trying out a live after lunch between 1 PM and whenever we finish. So please join me and Hoggy for some sessions where we can really get some stuff done and work together through the haze of brain fog. There'll be writing sessions, a chance to chat, and even a chance to ask me questions about my author journey. Hope to see you there. Ask the Author. In this week's Ask the Author, Paperman8869 asked the following question. Hello, I was wondering how you go about planning your books. So, how does this foggy author go about planning his books? Well, after trying out multiple methods and finding that they weren't all for me, I decided to create my own planning template. The template is actually quite simple, very helpful, and works well with foggy brains. I call it the bullet outline. I use Scrivener and I start my books by creating a project. Then I use a project title which is not normally the title of the book. When I was at school, I was always told to create a story with a beginning, a middle and an end, and I still do this in my stories now. After that, I add the 3-act method and make all the icons look the same. This gives me a visual clue that these notes need to be deleted later or not included when I've finished and go to compile the book. The 3-act method is a template that a lot of writers use to create a story. Each part of the 3-act method is a framework for organizing the plot and direction in which to take your story. It goes through the start of the story, introducing characters, the plot, and then takes the main characters through the plot, helping them to face their struggles, and finishing at the end with the changes the characters have experienced that have made them a stronger person whilst helping them obtain their goal. Early on in my author career, I read lots of books on the craft of writing. One of my favourites was The Snowflake Method by Randy Ingemanson. The book itself has been written in a rather ingenious way. The story contains fairy tale characters, but it instantly draws you into the story whilst learning his method of story creation. In his book, he gets you to think of the shape of a snowflake, how it has a centre which branches off into main staves. Then, the icy structure contains more branches and smaller branches connecting those, and so on. Writing a book with the snowflake method is great for us foggies because it's as simple as creating some plot points, then adding smaller ones and smaller ones, padding the story out, and eventually creating the story. In this example, I've chosen the story of Cinderella. Cinderella lives with her cruel stepmother and stepsisters. She remains kind and hopeful. A royal ball is announced. Cinderella wants to go. A fairy godmother appears. She's warned to return before midnight. And at the ball, the Prince is enchanted by Cinderella. She flees at midnight. The prince searches the kingdom. The slipper fits Cinderella. These sections are typically the main staves of the snowflake. Now we need to branch them out. In this example, you can see the extra additions to the script. And further on, we add extras and extras, filling in more details. The cool thing about this is these can be rearranged. The great thing about using Scrivener is that you don't have to stick to the plot that you've created. Instead, you can move these virtual cards so that you can put them in the order you want to. For example, instead of the prince speaking to the horrible stepsisters to try and find Cinderella, imagine if he'd met them first. How would the story be if one of them had actually made a move on the prince? The prince had felt obliged, and then they'd had an affair. That would make Cinderella a much more different book. There are so many pros and very few cons to using this method. The pros of my method. It is brain fog friendly, works with low focus and limited energy, and stops you getting stuck with writer's block, as the prompts are already there for you. The simple bullet format makes it easy to scan, add more plots, and update various bits and bobs. Scrivener visuals. Inside Scrivener, using the icons and the structure, it helps you to track your progress. I like this method because it mixes old school and modern, combining the beginning, middle, end with the 3-act structure and the snowflake thinking. It's scalable because as you add extra bits in, you can expand your ideas as your brain allows, from simple ideas to detailed notes. There's no pressure to polish. Placeholders mean progress without perfection until you want it. It's visually clear. You'll always know what's done and what still needs work. And it's a custom fit for me. It's a mashup of all the best bits of planning systems made for how my brain works. There are, however, a few cons to keep in mind. It can feel flat at first. Bullets may lack emotional depth until you've completely fleshed them out. Scrivener has a rather large learning curve, so it's not always easy on a foggy day, but if you're willing to give it a go, it's well and truly worth it. Too much branching can be overwhelming, especially if you get carried away with the snowflake layers. Unfortunately, this is not ideal for pantsers, those who like to work without planning. They might find this too structured. However, you can thin out your structure by not adding as much detail. Problem with this is, if you forget what you were writing, it can take a lot longer to get back into the writing groove after some time off. Turning bullet points into full paragraphs can sometimes take extra work. Bullet points don't always flow naturally into full scenes. This method is also not very collaborative. Explaining your personalized system to a co-author may be quite tricky. Formula fatigue. If I use the same structure every time, it can risk predictability, making very bored readers. So sometimes I like to change it up by using a different template, such as the Save the Cat method. I hope this has given you an insight into the way I plot as an author and given you some ideas on how you can plot a book too. Thanks to Paperman8869 for asking this question. If you'd like to ask the author a question about my life as an author or anything about time travel or my books, please feel free to get in touch by leaving a comment underneath this video. Book of the Week. This week, I'm thrilled to spotlight the Sanctity Gene, a gripping dystopian debut by Sarah Anthem, now newly re-released as a self-published title after originally being published by Anaya Press. Sarah's journey from classroom inspiration to indie author is as compelling as her fiction. Tired of watching students flock to formulaic vampire romances, she set out to craft clean, high-stakes, speculative stories packed with adrenaline, twists and heart, and the Sanctity Gene delivers all that and more. Recent graduate Anna earned a high-level placement working in genetic science, but risks it all smuggling restricted goods to her less fortunate foster sister. When she's caught at the border crossing, a militant guard promises he'll overlook her crime in exchange for slides of altered DNA she must steal from the lab. When chaos erupts, Anna escapes into the depths of the city among an underground community planning an uprising. Now, not only is she a smuggler and a thief, she is also a traitorous rebel. Her crimes have taken her further than she ever intended, and out of touch with the sister she desperately wants to save. Her struggle to make things right spins out of control when she collides with a man from the life she left behind. He hides powerful secrets. Convincing him to help her prevent the government from eliminating the people she's grown to love will take more than the underhanded scheming she's relied upon in the past. And copies of this book are available and the link is below. Featured article: Print royalty rate and paperback printing cost changes. On June the 10th, 2025, Amazon will be making more changes. As I logged into my KDP dashboard, the place where I upload my books for publication, I read the following notice. For the first time since starting print operations almost 2 decades ago, from June 10th, 2025, we're changing the royalty rate for books priced below certain list prices, e.g. less than $9.99 or £7.99. The royalty rate on these titles will decrease from 60% to 50%. These books represent a unique challenge given increasing operational costs, and this change will allow us to continue offering these books while avoiding impact to other titles. Separately, as part of our annual printing cost review, we're reducing colour printing costs for paperbacks in some marketplaces to help authors adopt colour printing. So, what does this actually mean? If you're an author who sells paperback books priced under £8, Amazon is going to lower the royalty you get from 60% down to 50%. So, if you're pricing your books cheap, you'll be earning less per sale from now on. Why? Well, printing and shipping these low-priced books costs more than before, and Amazon says this helps them keep offering those cheaper titles without messing with prices on more expensive books. On the bright side, Amazon is making it cheaper to print colour paperbacks in some places, including the UK. That means if you write books with pictures or illustrations, it might be less expensive to get them out there. For readers, you might notice a few things over time. Some authors might raise prices a little on their cheaper books or stop offering them in paperback. But you might also see some colourful illustrated paperbacks popping up. So, authors, if you're selling low-priced paperbacks, it's worth taking a look at your pricing and seeing how this change might affect you. And readers, just keep an eye out for the small price changes and maybe more colourful books in future. So, what's the bottom line? Amazon is cutting author pay on low-priced paperbacks from 60% to 50%. They're also making colour books cheaper to print, which could encourage more colour content. As an author, you may want to rethink your pricing. As a reader, you can expect some price adjustments or fewer budget print options, but maybe more colourful books in the future. And that's all for this week. Don't forget to join me for the live on Wednesday and stay tuned for the next exciting episode of The Foggy Author. And I will see you all in the future.